Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom, especially to all the families, to the staff, the faculty, and especially the proud graduates of Ravenscraft Senior Class 2022. I am Rabbi Eric Solomon, the Senior Rabbi of Beth Meyer Synagogue in North Raleigh, literally across the street from Ravenscraft. And it still is my great honor to be speaking to you today, even though by video. You can tell from my voice, I'm sure it's already known, that sadly I came down with COVID. It's a mild case. Definitely hold me in your prayers, please. I am vaccinated, boosted, etc. And please God, it will be quick. This is a tremendous honor, and I'm very sorry to miss it in person, but I'll do my best to give a brief blessing, teaching, hopefully a charge to all that are so fantastic and so celebrated. Before I do, I just want to make a quick word to say how much I admire and respect not only your institution as Ravenscraft, where many of my congregants at Beth Meyer, many members of the Jewish community, have attended in the past and attend currently. We're grateful for your welcome, your inclusivity, and your support of those with all faiths and no faith. And we also want to specifically call out Doreen Kelly, who's been a tremendous colleague, someone I've enjoyed connecting with. And I'm sorry to miss seeing her in person here tonight, but really is such a person with such an incredible soul, incredible leadership, and it's impressed me and my wife and our family many times over. And a special call out to Harp Sandman. Mazel tov to you and the Salmon family, who we adore, not only as neighbors, but as friends. And Harp, thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry I could be there in person. Hopefully I'll make it up for you at some point later on the street. Okay, here's my teaching to you. I'm going to try and bring it briefly. It's on video. One of the greatest ironic questions in the entire Torah, the 5 books of Moses, deals with the great leader of the Jewish people, the children of Israel, Moses. You know the story, you probably saw either Prince of Egypt or the Charlton Heston version, maybe your parents did, or hopefully read the real version at some point. In the book of Exodus, my people historically were enslaved by Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, and it was very difficult. Hundreds of years of slavery. Eventually, God, a famous moment of the burning bush, appoints Moses, says, Moses, you're the guy. I want you to let my people go. Moses is reluctant at first, but eventually accepts. And one of the great ironies of this is he's going to go to Pharaoh, the greatest leader who himself thought he was a god, and go to him and tell him, this people you're enslaving, you're oppressing, you're going to have to let them go. And Pharaoh, in all likelihood, is going to not look kindly on this, which is what happened, and not even respect Moses. Like, who are you to tell me this? And Moses, a lot of questions, insecurities. So one of the greatest ironies and paradoxes is that God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. But Moses has, in Hebrew, kaved lashon. Kaved means heaviness or something heavy or challenged, and lashon means tongue. He has a heavy tongue, which translators explain as a speech impediment. Something maybe like a strong lisp or something challenged about his tongue. So how can it be that God tells this most important moment in Jewish history, we could say world history, and he picks someone who has a lot of good qualities? I'm not putting Moses down. I love Moses. But he can't speak well. I mean, what does that say? What could that possibly mean? Okay, I want to explain this via another Moses of our times, the great Steve Jobs. May he rest in peace. It's very relevant to us here in Raleigh because Apple is coming or already here. And Steve Jobs has a story that I think sheds light on why God chose Moses when Moses had this challenge, specifically in the space of speaking, when the whole job was going to be doing a lot of speaking. Why give this to Moses? Well, Steve Jobs, some of you may know the great autobiography, or not auto, but it was written with Steve Jobs together by Walter Isaacson, where he describes his life as he was sadly dying in his last months of his life. A lot of it was completed. Steve Jobs, some of you may know, was adopted. And when he was young, his parents decided in Northern California to let him know that as a young kid, not to hide it from him. It's a very powerful decision. And one day he was coming home from school, and a next door neighbor, a girl who he was friends with, he's maybe 5 or 6 years old, and they got into kind of typical youthful thing that happens with kids. And the girl turned to Steve Jobs and said, you are adopted, or nanny, boo-boo, not nice at all. And Steve Jobs said, yeah, I'm aware. My parents told me. But then the girl went forward and said, no, you were adopted. That means your birth mother didn't love you. Your birth mother abandoned you. And when Steve Jobs realized that idea, which had never occurred to him before at that young age, he burst into tears. He was hysterical. And he ran home, opened up the door, ran into his parents. Mommy, Daddy, he could barely understand him. Finally, calmed him down. Is it true? My mother, who birthed me, abandoned me? She didn't love me? Is that why I was adopted? And a very powerful scene, which he said affected his entire life, is when his mother turned to little Steve Jobs and said, I can't speak for your birth mother. I never met her. But what I know is that when we decided to look to adopt, we could have chosen any child in the entire world. But we chose you. You were never abandoned. You were chosen. And according to Walter Isaacson, Steve Jobs took that message as a message for his life. That he was chosen. That he wasn't excluded, put to the side. He was included. He was connected. And the great power of that is if you could summarize Apple as a non-marketing guy, as a rabbi, Apple, and many tech companies, but especially Apple, is incredibly successful at connecting people, at including people. Apple is about technology, we know, in a million different ways. But ultimately, it's about connection. It's about making everyone feel, hopefully, that they're not missing out, that they're part of the in-group. On some level, they're chosen. So Steve Jobs, because he understood what it meant to be potentially excluded, made it his life's mission successfully to bring as many people to be included. So let's come back to Moses. Moses has a speech impediment, but maybe that's why he was called to speak to Pharaoh. Because he was challenged with speech. There were things he understood about the value of speech. He appreciated speech so much that he took it so seriously, with such holiness and devotion, that he spoke more powerfully than perhaps anyone. And why do I say this to you all? Class of 2022, Ravenscroft. There are people that say about your generation's graduating class that you are graduating the most challenging times, arguably ever, and have been through high school during absolutely some of the most challenging times. COVID, it's one of it. We got a war in Ukraine. We've had the murder of George Floyd and the awareness around police brutality, sadly, the Black Lives Matter movement. Me Too, and issues of sexual harassment in general of women has become more prominent, thank God, but also the challenges around it and the reckoning with it. Inflation's now, problems with getting baby formula, even at the current times. We've had contested elections, a society there's more civil discord than perhaps ever in our nation's history since the Civil War. There was a riot with deaths on the Capitol. You have lived through a time that has been incredibly difficult. Climate change. More children, youth, I think you know, during this time have struggled with, especially due to COVID, isolation, anguish, anxiety, depression, even maybe a little hopelessness. What are you graduating into? And here's what I want to say. All that's true. It's all true that you're living through very difficult times. You've lived through difficult times. One way to look at that is that you're damaged on some level, that you are affected only negatively. Sadly, it's taken its toll, not only on you, but on all of us, your parents too. But another way to look at it is that you all are survivors. You all understand what it means to struggle. You all know what it means to feel on some level cheated of some of the normal high school experiences that most, thankfully, Americans have had. And one way to see that is all about the losses. Another way to see it is that there are things spiritually gained through that struggle. You all, in all likelihood, do not take life for granted. You appreciate what you have, what you've been given, and know what happens when things go away. You appreciate, in all likelihood, community, friendship. You are the ones that are teaching us, and will teach us, that technology has its benefits, but nothing beats a face-to-face, a hug, a handshake, a feeling of being in person, of praying in person. You all appreciate that. You all know what it means to be hopeful, to keep hope alive when we're in lockdown and things are tough. Moses, when he was struggling with his mouth and struggled with speech, he had to turn to his brother Aaron to help him. You too understand, to get through challenges, it can't happen alone. You got to turn to your family, to your friends, even to strangers. And you have to step up and be there for them, because we all need each other. Something our country, sadly, our society sometimes has forgotten, but has been reawakened during these challenging times. Here's what I think. I think you all have been perhaps the most challenged generation in recent memory, maybe in a century. But I also think that through that, you have the tools to bring us to the promised land, to help change our society, to do better, to serve, to help do changes and give us the feedback and help us grow, to be the leaders that this society needs spiritually to come out of the ditch that we are sadly in. And I'll say one last thing about hope, because you all understand at this service, a baccalaureate, what it means to graduate and to celebrate, even though you know that COVID's still around and things are still challenged. You're keeping hope alive for the future, that it will be better. And God, with God's help, it will be. One of my favorite stories about that from the Jewish tradition is a great rabbi, when he was a child, Hugo Grin, may he rest in peace, was a survivor of the concentration camps of the Holocaust. And he and his father survived, thankfully, together. And the story he told, when he was about 12 years old, it was the holiday of Hanukkah, the festival of lights in the winter period of time. We light a candelabra every night. Many of you, I'm sure, even if you're not Jewish, you're very familiar. But in the concentration camps with the Nazis, to fulfill and light a candelabra was at risk of death. But his father, tells the story, traded his rations of a potato. They were thin, they were gaunt, they were suffering, they were scared. It was winter, they're freezing in Poland, Eastern Europe, and traded them for a few wicks and some wax to light a makeshift Hanukkah candelabra in the camps. True story. And the son turned to his father and said, "Dad, what are you doing? You're risking our lives to light Hanukkah candles? You could get us killed. We need that food. We could die." And his father said a line that reverberates in my soul. His father said to him, "Son, Hugo, we know that we can live up to 3 weeks without food. We can live up to 3 days without water. We cannot last 3 minutes without hope." And he lit the Hanukkah candles anyway. You guys are going to light the candles for us. You all are going to teach us and remind us of what it means to keep hope alive. You all, through your gratitude and appreciation, are going to help remind us, sadly, some of us of our generation, who sometimes take things for granted, and make sure we don't. You all are not impeded, impacted only negatively, malaffected. You all are the survivors. You are the visionaries. And I believe that with God's help, you will lead us to the new promised land, a more connected, a more grateful, a more hopeful generation. So I wish you mazel tov, as we say in our tradition, congratulations. May you have the strength like Moses did to take what could have been your greatest challenge and make it your greatest gift. Steve Jobs did it. You can do it too. God bless you. God bless this amazing Ravenscross class. And God bless the gifts that you will bring to us and the world. Shalom.